When the mind is troubled, it becomes the battlefield where the greatest wars are fought. It is not the external storm that defeats you, but the storm you allow to rage unchecked inside your own thoughts. Life has a way of planting seeds of doubt, fear, and insecurity into the soil of your mind. And if left unattended, those seeds grow into weeds that choke out your peace. The healing begins when you recognize that your thoughts don't have to control you. You have the power to choose which thoughts take root and which ones you cast out. A troubled mind doesn't need more worry. It needs clarity, renewal, and the assurance that God has not abandoned you. So often when pain comes, we replay it in our minds like a broken record. Every offense, every rejection, every failure keeps echoing, and the repetition magnifies the wound. Healing starts when you stop rehearsing the hurt and start releasing it. You cannot heal if you keep feeding your mind with the poison of yesterday's disappointments. At some point, you must draw a line and decide that your peace is more valuable than your pain. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of strength in the middle of them. A troubled mind whispers that you are unworthy, that you are broken beyond repair, that nothing good can come from your struggle. But that is a lie meant to keep you bound. You are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you choose to believe about yourself in the aftermath of it. If you keep believing the lies, you will keep living beneath your potential. But when you choose to stand on truth, when you declare that your best days are still ahead, then your troubled mind begins to shift into a renewed one. Healing is not just about fixing what is broken. It's about transforming the way you think about who you are and where you're going. Think about how many times life tried to break you, yet you endured. The fact that you're still standing, still breathing, still pressing forward is evidence that there is more strength in you than you realize. Healing your mind means reminding yourself of what you've already overcome. If you made it through that storm before, you can make it through this one too. Trouble comes and trouble goes, but the strength you develop in the process will stay with you forever. Sometimes the most powerful act of healing is silence. Not silence born from defeat, but silence that refuses to give your energy to every negative thought. When you quiet your mind and focus on what's true, noble, and pure, you create room for peace to enter. Healing is not just about what you drive out, it's about what you invite in. When you invite hope, joy, and gratitude into your thinking, your troubled mind will begin to shift into a place of rest. Never forget, the mind is the steering wheel of your life. If your mind is broken, your direction will be crooked. But if your mind is healed, you can move forward with clarity and confidence. Don't let fear and doubt keep driving your future. Take back the keys, reclaim your peace, and remind yourself that your troubled mind is not permanent. Healing is here. Healing is possible. Healing starts when you believe that your mind can be renewed, restored, and made whole again. A troubled mind often comes from the wounds we carry that have never been addressed. We live in a world where people are quick to hide behind smiles while silently bleeding inside. You can look put together on the outside, but if the inside of you is fractured, no amount of makeup, suits, or success can cover the ache. The pain of betrayal, the sting of rejection, the weight of shame, and the regret of past mistakes can carve deep scars in the heart. And those scars influence the way you think, the way you see yourself, and even the way you see others. Healing a troubled mind begins with facing those wounds instead of pretending they don't exist. Ignoring pain does not make it disappear, it makes it grow stronger. Many people carry unresolved hurts for years, dragging them into new seasons, new relationships, and new opportunities, wondering why the same patterns keep repeating. A broken place inside of you will show itself, no matter how well you try to bury it. Healing comes when you stop numbing the pain and start confronting it. That confrontation may not be easy, but it is necessary. You cannot conquer what you refuse to face. There is power in naming the wound. There is power in admitting, yes, I was hurt. Yes, I was abandoned. Yes, I was mistreated. For too long we have been taught to suffer in silence, but silence often becomes the cage that keeps us bound. When you acknowledge the hurt, you break the chains that shame has tried to wrap around your mind. Denial keeps you trapped, but honesty sets you free. The process of healing the inner wounds also requires forgiveness, not for the sake of the other person, but for your own freedom. Holding on to bitterness does not punish the one who hurt you. It poisons your own mind. Bitterness turns into anger. Anger turns into resentment. And resentment clouds your thinking until you no longer see clearly. Forgiveness is not saying that what they did was right. Forgiveness is saying, I refuse to let what they did continue to rule my thoughts and control my life. When you release the offense, you release yourself from the prison of a troubled mind. But it's not just about forgiving others, it's also about forgiving yourself. Too many are tormented by the mistakes of their past, replaying what ifs and if onlys over and over again until it becomes a mental prison. Healing requires you to stop condemning yourself for what you didn't know then. You cannot change yesterday, but you can learn from it, grow from it, and move forward because of it. Self-forgiveness is one of the greatest acts of self-liberation. And finally, healing the wounds of the mind means inviting restoration into the places that once were broken. You cannot simply leave emptiness behind. You must replace it with something whole. Where there was despair, plant hope. Where there was fear, plant courage. Where there was shame, plant confidence. Restoration is the rebuilding of what pain tried to destroy. It is the process of transforming your scars into testimonies of strength. A troubled mind doesn't heal overnight, but every step you take toward acknowledging the pain, forgiving the offense, and embracing restoration brings you closer to peace. Your wounds do not have the final say. You are not defined by what broke you. You are defined by how you rise from it. Healing is possible. And when the inner wounds are addressed, the troubled mind begins to settle, clarity returns, and peace reigns where chaos once lived. Peace of mind is not something that just falls into your lap. It is something you must fight for, protect, and intentionally cultivate. In a world that is constantly noisy, chaotic, and demanding, peace becomes one of the most valuable treasures you can ever possess. The challenge is that so many people have been conditioned to live in turmoil that they don't even realize peace is an option. They've grown so accustomed to the sound of conflict, the rhythm of anxiety, and the weight of constant stress that when life is quiet, it almost feels uncomfortable. But true peace, the kind that settles deep into your soul, is not dependent on circumstances. It is rooted in something stronger. Peace is not the absence of storms. It is the ability to remain steady in the middle of them. Anyone can smile when everything is going right, but the true test of peace is when the winds are raging and the waves are crashing. Can you rest when the world around you is restless? Can you remain calm when chaos is knocking on your door? That kind of peace doesn't come from external sources. It is born from within. One of the greatest enemies of peace is worry. Worry robs your mind of rest and magnifies problems beyond their true size. It is like carrying a backpack filled with bricks everywhere you go. Bricks of fear, bricks of doubt, bricks of what if. Worry doesn't solve tomorrow's problems. It only drains today's strength. You cannot experience peace until you make the decision to lay those bricks down. Peace comes when you trust that no matter what happens, you are not walking through it alone. Another enemy of peace is peace. Some individuals are chaos wrapped in skin, and if you are not careful, they will pull you into their storm. Protecting your peace sometimes means setting boundaries that others may not like. It means saying no without guilt. It means refusing to let someone else's dysfunction dictate your atmosphere. You cannot afford to let someone else's drama become your reality. Guarding your peace is not selfish, it's survival. Peace also requires letting go of control. Many troubled minds are tormented because they are always trying to manage every detail of life. They want certainty where there is mystery, clarity where there is still process, and control where there must be trust. But peace does not come from having everything figured out. Peace comes when you learn to release the need to control and choose to rest in the assurance that what is meant for you will not pass you by. When you protect your peace, you begin to think clearly. Decisions that once seemed impossible become manageable. Stress that once consumed you begins to lose its grip. Relationships flourish because you are no longer reacting from a place of fear or insecurity. Peace steadies you, grounds you, and allows you to move forward with confidence, no matter the season you're in. Protecting your peace is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice. You must wake up each morning and choose to guard your heart, choose to quiet your mind, and choose to let go of what does not serve your soul. Peace is not fragile, it is powerful. And once you taste it, you will never want to live without it again. There comes a point in every journey where the mind must be renewed. You cannot step into new seasons with old thought patterns and expect different results. Many people pray for change, cry out for breakthrough, but when the opportunity arrives, they sabotage it because their mind is still trapped in yesterday's way of thinking. A renewed mind is like fresh soil, ready to receive seed and bring forth harvest. An old mindset, however, is like hardened ground. Nothing new can take root. That is why transformation always begins in the mind before it manifests in your life. The way you think shapes the way you live. If your thoughts are small, your life will stay small. If your thoughts are filled with fear, you will constantly hesitate. If your thoughts are chained to past failures, you will keep replaying old stories instead of writing new chapters. The mind is a battlefield where lies, doubts, and insecurities try to build strongholds. But once you confront those lies with truth, once you challenge those thoughts and refuse to accept them as your reality, you begin to experience freedom. Renewing the mind is not a one-time act, it is a daily discipline. Just like the body requires food to nourish, the mind requires truth to stay strong. If you keep feeding your thoughts with negativity, gossip, and fear, don't be surprised when anxiety rules your life. But if you feed your mind with hope, with vision, with promises greater than your problems, you start to think differently. You stop rehearsing what went wrong and begin anticipating what can go right. Sometimes the greatest barrier to a renewed mind is comfort. Old patterns may not be healthy, but they are familiar. The mind clings to what it knows, even if it's destructive. That's why stepping into new thinking often feels uncomfortable. It's stretching you beyond what is familiar. But comfort zones never produce growth. You cannot conquer new territory with an old mentality. If you want to see different, you have to think different. A renewed mind doesn't mean you'll never face challenges. It means you'll face them with a new perspective. Instead of saying, "This is the end," you'll say, "This is the beginning of something new." Instead of declaring, "I can't handle this," you'll remind yourself, "I was built for this." Perspective changes everything. Two people can face the same storm. One collapses in fear, the other rises with courage. The difference is not the storm, but the mindset. Renewal also requires you to detach from voices that keep you bound. Some people will remind you of your failures every chance they get. Some environments will constantly feed you doubt. You have to be selective with what you allow into your headspace, because everything you listen to plants a seed. If you surround yourself with voices of defeat, don't expect your life to move in victory. Guarding your mind means carefully choosing what you feed it and who you give access to it. The beauty of a renewed mind is that it doesn't just change how you think, it changes who you become. You start walking differently, talking differently, believing differently. Where you once saw obstacles, you now see opportunities. Where you once felt powerless, you now realize you are equipped. Renewal breaks the cycle of limitation and opens the door to possibility. You have the power to change your mind, and when you change your mind, everything else will follow. What once held you back will no longer intimidate you. What once controlled you will no longer define you. Renewal is the doorway to transformation, and transformation is the evidence that your mind has been made new. There are moments in life when the weight of the past sits so heavily on your shoulders that you begin to believe it will always define you. The memories of what you lost, the mistakes you made, the years you wasted, they whisper to you that you will never recover, never rise, never shine again. But you must understand that your destiny is not imprisoned by your history. What happened yesterday does not cancel out the promise of today. God's grace has a way of rewriting stories, taking broken pieces and building something stronger than before. The enemy's favorite tactic is to keep you chained in regret. He doesn't even have to stop your progress if he can convince you to stop yourself. If he can get you to dwell on shame, you will sabotage your own future. If he can get you to replay failures, you will keep rehearsing pain instead of practicing faith. That is why you must learn to silence the lies of regret with the truth of restoration. Every tear you cried, every night you thought was wasted, every seed you thought died in the soil, it was not in vain. It was preparing you for what is yet to come. You see, nothing is wasted when placed in God's hands. The years you thought were empty can become the foundation of wisdom. The pain you thought broke you can become the platform that strengthens you. The places where you felt weak can become the very places where God's power shows up the strongest. That's why you cannot measure your life only by what you see right now. Some things take time to bloom. Seeds stay hidden in the dark before they ever break through the ground. Your life may look buried, but in truth, it may just be planted. Letting go of the past is not pretending it never happened. It is refusing to let it control the direction of your future. Yes, you may have been betrayed. Yes, you may have been overlooked. Yes, you may have endured seasons where nothing made sense. But those seasons do not have the authority to define you. They are chapters in your story, not the conclusion of your book. You are more than what you've been through. And you are destined for more than where you've been stuck. There will always be people who try to remind you of your yesterday. They will call you by old names, attach you to old mistakes, and try to keep you in old cycles. But when your mind is renewed, you understand that people don't have the power to define what God has already redeemed. Their words may sting, but they cannot stop your destiny. You don't have to argue with them. You don't have to prove yourself to them. Just keep walking forward. The evidence of your transformation will speak louder than their opinions. One of the most powerful things you can do is release yourself. Forgive yourself for what you didn't know then that you know now. Release yourself from the shame of bad choices, the guilt of missed opportunities, the burden of wasted time. If God has forgiven you, who are you to keep holding yourself hostage? Freedom begins when you decide to stop punishing yourself for a past you cannot change and start embracing a future you can create. When you let go of the past, you make room for the new. You create space for fresh vision, fresh opportunities, fresh connections. Old wounds close so new life can grow. And in that space, you will discover strength you never thought you had. What once felt like the end becomes the very soil where resurrection begins. What once looked like ashes becomes the place where beauty rises. Your past does not disqualify you. It qualifies you for a testimony. This is the power of release. It unlocks the future that has been waiting for you all along. And when you step into it, you realize that everything you thought was wasted was really an investment. Every scar becomes a story of survival. Every loss becomes a lesson of resilience. And every tear becomes a seed of joy that will bloom in its appointed season. Peace is not the absence of storms. It is the presence of God in the midst of them. Life has a way of throwing us into situations that leave our minds racing, our hearts unsettled, and our spirits weighed down. Troubles rise like waves, and anxiety creeps in like a shadow, and before we know it, our thoughts become prisons, keeping us locked behind bars of fear and doubt. But there is a peace that surpasses understanding, a calm that does not depend on circumstances, a stillness that silences the noise of life. That peace can only be found in the one who holds the winds and waves in his hands. You must realize that troubled minds are often the greatest battlegrounds. The war is not always fought on the outside, within the thoughts that replay, the fears that echo, the imaginations that torment. The enemy knows if he can trouble your mind, he can trouble your faith. If he can disturb your thoughts, he can disrupt your walk. That is why God promises not just to guard your heart, but also to guard your mind. His healing is not just physical, it is mental and emotional. He doesn't just want you to look strong on the outside while falling apart on the inside. He wants you whole. When you allow his presence to enter your troubled places, something supernatural happens. Chaos does not vanish overnight, but his peace rises above the noise. Fear may still knock at your door, but faith answers it with authority. Worry may whisper in your ear, but the word shouts louder, reminding you that you are not forsaken. You begin to understand that peace is not fragile, it is powerful. It has the strength to anchor you when everything else is shifting. It becomes the guard at the gate of your mind, refusing to let despair take over. Some of you have been carrying sleepless nights, tossing and turning with questions that have no answers. You've been wearing a smile on your face while silently drowning in thoughts you cannot escape. But hear this, you were never meant to carry it alone. That burden was too heavy for you because it was never yours to carry in the first place. Healing begins when you lay it down. Peace begins when you surrender control. The moment you stop trying to figure everything out and start trusting the one who already knows, that is when stillness starts to flood your soul. Don't mistake peace for passivity. It doesn't mean you stop moving or give up on the fight. It means you stop fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. It means you choose faith over fear, trust over torment, surrender over struggle. Peace does not make you weaker, it makes you stronger. It gives you the clarity to move forward without being paralyzed by anxiety. It gives you the courage to face tomorrow without being trapped by yesterday. And here is the beauty of it all. Peace is not something you have to chase. It is something you receive. It is a gift, not a reward. You don't earn it by being perfect. You don't buy it with effort. It is given freely. All you have to do is open your heart and receive what has already been promised. When you do, you will discover that even in the darkest valley, you can walk without fear. Even in the fiercest storm, you can rest. Even when nothing makes sense, you can trust that God is still in control. So lift up your troubled mind and place it in His hands. Release the anxieties, surrender the questions, let go of the weight. There is healing for the restless. There is peace for the broken, there is calm for the weary, and when that peace takes root, no storm, no struggle, no sorrow can take it away. It will guard you, guide you, and carry you into a future where your mind is no longer a battlefield, but a sanctuary.